So, new PC patch came out. I want to see if there's actually much of a difference. Now, I don't really have recordings prior to this showing any performance, but I'll tell you with frame generation, I mean, I'll tell you what each thing means real quick. If you look at the top left of my screen, I have frame gen on. Frame gen is going to be where it says DLSS, it's going to be the leftmost number, and then FPS is going to be the average of the non-frame gen. And then next to that you have a down arrow and an up arrow. That's your lows and your highs. So I'm averaging, says 65 right now. I'm getting highs in the 70s, lows in like the high 50s. And the DLSS just kind of doubles whatever the FPS is. So I'm just going to jump into a random lobby and I'm going to go to the oil well basin. The only footage that I was able to find I still have on my computer looking at frames was when Gogmazios came out. I think I was averaging around like 55 with DLSS on, so DLSS would have been like around 100, and then my normal frames were around 55, 50-ish. I also need to maybe turn first person off for this, for the sake of doing this like normal. Alright, so real quick, I actually want to go and take a look at all the settings that changed. I don't know if it reset any of my stuff or not. Now, just to show you what hardware I'm running, I've got a GeForce RTX 4080 Super, I have a 7800X3D Ryzen 7, I've got 16 gigabytes VRAM, I'm on the latest NVIDIA drivers. I have a mod for direct storage, so I don't really know what that's going to be doing, and then I have 64 gigabytes RAM. I'm playing in 4K, borderless window, on a 4K monitor, normal aspect ratios, uncapped frame rate, HDR on. These are the new CPU options. Doesn't look all that intensive, I'm just going to leave everything that way. So all my settings should be exactly how they were before. I don't think it actually messed with anything, I'm just going to make sure. I don't play with the highest resolution textures just because before this patch it was really bad. Apparently it's a lot less noticeable now. No text for foliage density, but I still have everything up to the highest. Especially with a 4080 Super, I should be able to play everything fine with all this on. Now, I'm gonna go to the oil well basin and just kind of see what it looks like there. Like I said, the only footage I have, I mean, I can put it on screen, is in the oil well basin. So I'll see if my average looks any higher or if it's about the same or what. I have a feeling this patch probably impacted lower performing hardware the most. Yeah, my FPS is not looking all that great. Actually kind of looks potentially worse. What's up with that? I'm going to change my direct storage option in my mod, make it CPU handled instead of a GPU. Maybe that'll help with it. But I do also have a couple other mods installed, so it might put a little more onto it. I also have RE Shade. Don't know if that really messes with it either. Actually feels a lot smoother though. I think the lows are more consistent. 'Cause before I could definitely feel that stutter even with DLSS on. Especially if I were to whip my camera around, but this is very smooth. That's not normally how it feels to play this. I'm going to turn DLSS off and see what it looks like, because I know that does bump my normal frames quite a bit. We'll turn off frame gen. We still have upscaling with DLSS. Whoa, my average frame rate's way higher than usual though. Looks like my CPU is starting to get a little bit messed with. I'll mess with my direct storage option again. Now that I don't have frame gen on, it might help it out a bit. A little more wiggle room for my GPU. But I am also recording, so it's kind of messing with it in that regard. Okay, my frame rate is not handling that well at all. Yeah, this is very stuttery now. I'm dropping quite a bit. If I turn off upscaling, that makes it a lot worse. Feels worse at least. Keep on upscaling. We'll keep everything else on. It's like I average in the range of 50 to 60. Not great. My lows are dipping a bit. I think it was better with the CPU on direct storage option. I guess part of my problem is I kind of just refuse to turn my settings down, which is more of just me being stubborn than anything. If I turn on the higher res texture pack, usually this dips me quite a bit. I've been hearing that this doesn't seem to do anything anymore, but I don't really know. Frame rate looks like it's dipping below 50 now. Yeah, my average definitely dropped with high res on, it seems. Really, it seems like it just kind of depends on where I'm at. I know the big test to do is Windward Plains, I think maybe during the Season of Plenty when all the small wildlife is out. So we're going to change this to the Season of Plenty morning time. I think that'll bring all like the smaller monsters out. And that's when you get the worst performance out here. Yeah, my frame rate seems more stable though. It definitely is more stable. And it's actually hitting 60s, which is pretty good, and I still have the high res pack on. And I'll kind of just go run in, see what's going on, bring the Sacred in. Yeah, whipping my camera around definitely drops the FPS too. Now, if I turn high res texture pack off, does that impact anything? That is kind of weird. Usually that used to have such a dramatic impact on the performance of my game, but it seems like it's not really doing anything, whether it's on or off. The game feels a lot more stable than it used to. That I definitely can feel. But yeah, it seems pretty stable now. The game doesn't have those dramatic dips like it used to. And if I put DLSS on, it's gonna feel even better for me. It's not gonna look any different for you, I don't imagine. I don't think OBS picks up on it at all. But then with frame gen on, I can probably bump this to balance now. Yeah, and my game feels really smooth. I'm not really dropping at all. I mean, my normal FPS is now kind of just sticking around the 30s. If I change this down... Whoa. Alright, it was pop in there. Yeah, high-res texture pack doesn't really do much. Now my question is, if I go first person, how much of a difference does the high-res make in terms of looking at things? So this is with the regular high textures. Game looks absolutely stunning from this perspective. And then if I turn on high-res, I think it just makes everything a little sharper. Maybe. I don't know. I would hope that's what it does. Especially in 4K, it's a little more noticeable, but I am recording in 1440, so you wouldn't be able to really tell too much of a difference on your end. I am stunned at how stable the game feels, though. It never feels this good to actually run around in. I'm gonna do a little hunt, see how that feels. Let me actually do that in a normal way real quick. It actually feels quite nice, which is really surprising. I'm so used to this game having frame dips. Again, I have frame gen on, so it definitely looks nicer on my end than if you're watching. Yeah, this feels incredibly fluid. I'm quite enjoying how this feels right now. I think the biggest takeaway from me experimenting with this is I use very high-end software, or sorry, I use very high-end hardware, so for it to feel nice and smooth and actually impact me is kind of a big deal, because that means people on lower-end specs are going to feel it a lot more than I am. It means I'm very happy for anybody who likes this game that plays on weaker hardware, because you're definitely going to feel the impact of this patch a lot more than I am. And I'm already feeling this quite a bit. It's actually beautiful. I love it. Being able to play nice and smooth, and with high-res texture pack, I was never able to play with that before. That just, I don't know what they had on that, but it would kill my frame rate anytime it was enabled. Alright, I'm just about to finish up the hunt now. Let's do a, discharge wake up. Ah, that's not what I wanted to do, damn. I screwed that up. It's like a 50-50 if I can space that right or not and just hit with the explosion. Alright, there we go. End of hunt. So that felt extremely fluid. I am very happy with that result. This is, prior to this patch, I had everything maxed out, but I only had my texture set to high. It wasn't high-res texture pack, and then I always had my DLSS set to performance. Now I have it set to balance, and I have high-res texture pack on, and this is the most stable I've ever felt this game. It's actually really surprising. I'll even go back to the oil well base and just get get that comparison again now. Since I'm averaging around like 45, so upping my settings on DLSS to balance rather than performance definitely hurts. Like if I put my upscaling back to performance now, you can see I do jump a couple frames up, not a ton. DLSS is kind of doing all the heavy lifting for me anyway. I prefer just to have that smoother image, and I don't really feel the drops in my controls all that much. I think the biggest takeaway from this patch and this update across all the hardware that I've seen is that it's not so much you're getting an overall higher FPS in terms of like your highs, but that your lows are so much more consistent. Your low FPS is higher than usual and you don't dip down. Like before, for me it would be, oh, I wiggle my camera around and I drop to like 20 FPS. I mean, I saw a 29 there, but it would be like, oh, here's like 20 FPS, 15 FPS, here's like 22. Just super low spikes where it would hit and it's, wow, my average FPS will dip down to like 30, 25, something like that, just all of a sudden, because the spikes are that low. But when it comes to this new patch, my lows feel great. I don't feel that drop nearly as much as I used to. It actually feels very fluid and very smooth. And again, I'm using some very powerful hardware, so you would kind of hope that my game would play like that regardless, but it doesn't always. Sadly, it does not always do that. So overall, I'm pretty happy with logging in and seeing this. I'm kind of shocked that there's actually this much of a change, even on high-end hardware, because everything I was seeing was on hardware lower than mine. But to see like, oh wow, I'm actually also feeling upgrades to my FPS and how smooth the game feels in my lows, that's a big takeaway. So, alright, if I'm uploading this video, then the results must be pretty good, so, bye!